Ravens-Steelers has been postponed and moved to tomorrow at 3:40 Eastern, the third postponement game after Ravens players said Monday they did not want to play Tuesday because of safety concerns and corresponding schedule changes. The Steelers' Week 13 game against Washington has been moved to that Monday, and the Ravens' Week 13 game against Dallas has been moved to that Tuesday. Running backs J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram are eligible to play Wednesday, but 13 Ravens players, including Lamar Jackson, will remain on the COVID list, a source telling our Adam Schefter. On that note, we bring in our quarterback, Dan Orlovsky of NFL Live fame and Get Up and many other programs. Dan, good to see you. Max, you're up first, though. What impact is this going to have on the season?
First of all, it must be windy where Dan is. Dan, you outside somewhere?
Yeah.
What's going on with this?
I was thinking about that myself, man. Yeah, I was thinking the jacket. What's up with that, Dan Orlovsky?
I purposely didn't wear a tie. I didn't wear a tie on purpose just so I didn't have to go on national television and get embarrassed by another grown man having me to tell me how to fix it.
Get it. I get it.
I don't understand.
All right, well, it's, prevent defense. Molly, I think the Steelers actually benefit from this in a weird way. I think that look, this is an undefeated team, and it's not their fault. It's like, hey, we're heading into Week 13 now. Why do they have 10 wins? But it's an undefeated team very late in the season, and they don't have the respect that they're due, really. People still don't believe in them. They don't show up on anyone's #1 power rankings or anything like that, and throughout the season, it's been a steady climb, and people have been hesitant to believe it. Early because the schedule is soft. Later because they don't blow out most teams. The good teams, they squeak by. Because, as I've said, great well-roundedness is not like great overwhelming offense. Mediocrity doesn't just get blown away. It just gets beaten. And so when we look to their wins and use them as measuring sticks, well, the Steelers only beat this team by a field goal, that team by 6 points, whatever it was. Not like this other team over here blew them out. No, but the Steelers, all they do is win. And I don't care how internally motivated you are. Guys, why is Tom Brady last year tweeting something basically at me saying Cliff and showing the miles per hour on the radar gun for the football? Like, what does he care about what I say, right? He's internally motivated. Why did Derek Jeter on the '98 Yankees, greatest team ever, say after they won the World Series, no one thought we could do it, when actually everyone thought they were going to do it? Because I don't care how internally motivated an athlete is, they're constantly looking for extra motivation, external motivation, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to use this now. A team that didn't fall into traps in trap games anyway, a team coached by Mike Tomlin that takes every opponent seriously, nevertheless is going to be even more intense for the rest of this season. Because for the second time, well, it's more than 2 times, but it's with 2 different teams, the Titans and the Ravens, probably the 2 toughest teams on their schedule so far, right? They have to postpone things. They have to move things around. Whether or not it's medically the responsible things to do, they're going to think, and they've said, we're getting jobbed here. So they don't get enough respect. Then they feel like they're getting jobbed by happenstance or by the league or by their arch rivals, the Ravens. It doesn't have to be perfectly rational. It just has to be the way they feel. I believe they're going to use this as motivation. I think we're going to see the best version of the Steelers, partly as a result of this from here on out. I think they just got even more dangerous.
I think you're reaching. I don't think that whatever you're seeing from the Steelers, I don't think it's going to be because of what has transpired here. And Dan, by the way, I do like the jacket. It's just that the zipper threw me off because it's over your right shoulder. But that's neither here nor there. I'll get back to that later, some other time.
Thank you.
Here's the bottom line with the Steelers. Everybody walked into this season knowing that change was going to take place. Like, it wasn't the September, if you remember the September 11 attacks in 2001, obviously the Super Bowl, ultimately the date was moved back or what have you, if I remember correctly, and they really haven't had postponements to their schedule since that time. We understand how sticklers the NFL is in terms of keeping things on schedule, but they came into the season knowing that changes were imminent. Week 4 with the Tennessee Titans, the multitude of things that they had to do with the New England Patriots because of the the number of folks that ended up testing positive. With the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers might be incredibly frustrated, but they might be incredibly frustrated because the games keep being moved back a day here, a day there, a day there. But you can't blame anybody. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, every single day, there's an additional positive test. So the Steelers might be perturbed. They might be a bit annoyed. But in the end, ultimately, what you have to reach the conclusion of is that, again, we're going through a global pandemic. We're seeing cases spike all over the country, particularly during the months of December and January. people are incredibly worried about how worse things are going to get. And the NFL hasn't been able to escape that reality. They already canceled the Pro Bowl, okay? You know they anticipate the possibility of having to move the Super Bowl back. They know that that stadium is going to be, you know, Raymond James Stadium, whatever it is in Tampa Bay, is going to be available. All of these contingency plans have been addressed. So when you're the Pittsburgh Steelers or any NFL team for that matter, because we're talking about COVID-19, in the immediate moment, it might be frustrating because you're trying to get on the schedule. You know you're ready to go, and the other team is not. And you understand that there's some blame to be pointed in their direction because a few individuals may have been irresponsible. But in the end, because it's COVID that we're talking about here, where you have people testing positive at times and they don't even know why. They don't know what they did. They were wearing their mask. They did engage in social distancing. But who knows? They might have touched the surface. They might have been in an environment where it was airborne. You don't know what the hell is going on. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the conclusion people will reach once things subside. So I don't think this is going to have an effect, positive or negative, on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think what you see from the Pittsburgh Steelers is what you were going to see anyway, whether there was a delay or not. I do not believe that it's going to be because of this, that somehow their motivation is elevated to a point where we're going to see them take something to another level. They're already undefeated, for crying out loud.
Yeah, before I get into the question, Max, let me address, listen, I don't need you to come at 10:30 in the morning. I already got a long day. I know I got a long day with you after what happened last night. I don't need to come on at 10:30 and for you to try to take a shot at my wardrobe, okay? You got all your buddies and all your cronies hitting me up on social media about Carson Wentz. I know at 11 o'clock when I got to come back on and talk about the Eagles and Carson Wentz, my hands are full. So the last thing I need is for you to take your shot at my jacket, okay? It's a free jacket. I want to wear it. Now to the question. I think there's really two big ramifications with what's going on in this game. One, this is really, really damning for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, this is a team that's the number 8 seed in the playoffs. And their chances of winning this football game are less than 1%, less than 2%. I mean, so you're talking about a team that, because of COVID and because of the rules and the protocols and the constant postponement of the game, that they're going to be without some really key players. They're going to lose this football game sitting at 6-5 and now likely going to be sitting at 6-6 as the 8 seed, which is going to be a huge game. I mean, we're talking one game could be the difference between not just getting the 1 seed and winning your division, but getting into the actual playoffs. And so this game is going to be huge, a huge mountain for them to climb afterwards to try to get back into the playoff race, because you're talking about Las Vegas and potentially New England being back into the picture because of it. And the second thing that I think of is this. This needs to be, in many ways, a warning sign or because I sit back and go, okay, maybe in week 11 or week 12, to the Baltimore Ravens, who might not be one of the glamour teams of the NFL, I don't want to say that, but like a team that's expected to win the Super Bowl this year, it might be somewhat easier to postpone this game. But what happens if it's week 16 or week 1 of the playoffs and it's Patrick Mahomes? And there's this constant, okay, Monday there's positive tests, Tuesday there's positive, Wednesday. Are they just going to constantly push playoff games? What happens if it's Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers? So this needs to be a really big moment for the NFL to go, how can we learn to better protect ourselves when we get into a moment where these games can't just be pushed 3 or 4 days because of the competitive advantage and disadvantage of win or go home scenarios. And that's the playoffs. So this is huge for the Ravens, a huge detriment for the Ravens, but also the NFL needs to learn from what has happened over this past 10 days with this game and make sure that they are ready, or a proactive setting playoffs.
I appreciate what you got. Like, I hear you, Dan, and your focus on the NFL or Stephen A. on the Ravens or whatever you guys want to say is fine, but that just goes to my point. The Steelers are going to look at this like this. Everyone's talking about the NFL or the Ravens. This is about us. We're undefeated. There is one undefeated team in football, and it happens to be a team who's tied for the most Super Bowl championships in history, and it took the Patriots a whole, the entire dynasty to finally even catch the Steelers for Super Bowl titles. They're like, hold on, timeout. We're a national brand, one of the greatest franchises. You could even argue the greatest franchise in the history of the NFL. We're undefeated this late into the season. You know, they spanked the Browns. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Titans. They had their bye week moved. They had their mini bye week erased. They may have to play an extended season. They didn't do anything wrong, right? They didn't, nothing that they did or nothing that happened to them that extended any of this. They're going to be sitting there with a giant chip on their shoulder. I think it motivates the Steelers. I think that's what this is going to wind up being about.
All right, we're leaving it there. Baltimore 6-4, meanwhile, one game out of the final wildcard spot in the AFC. Feisty Dan. I like it, Dan. Do you? Got your back always. You know this. When we come back here on First Take,